Oh man, what's up, my dudes? Okay, it is crucial, it is critical for me to come in here and do a direct comparison from RF's 2022 Anaheim 1 track to what I feel like was some of their best track designs ever. Because I feel like we're entering into this age where it's been so long since you've had this in this game, to the point to where, like, there's so many people that's never even experienced what I'm talking about. There's so many people that's forgotten how good the tracks were that I'm talking about, right? And it's just caused an absolute uproar in every way, okay? So we're back here on some of the 2017 RF replica tracks. Man, you need to listen to what I'm saying. This shit is vital. It's vital. But RF doesn't listen, because I said all this 2-3 years ago and they're still doing everything, so I guess it doesn't really matter. I guess it doesn't. But anyway, I'm going to keep doing it anyways, to just show the absolute monstrosity of a terrible track the 2022 Anaheim 1 track really is in this game. The problem with all of this is you boys you're hanging on to this pipe dream of this fantasy that Erode is going to be so much better than it really is in this game. And so you're willing to sacrifice anything for Erode. You can make the track designs as shitty, the berms smaller, the jumps smaller, everything smaller, stupid-ass sand friction level traction. You're willing to sacrifice anything for the Erode in the game. So of course you're not going to understand what I'm saying. It all makes sense, bro. Of course you're not going to understand any of this shit. You're not going to understand it. But I guarantee you take a bunch of them boys that think that Anaheim 1 2022 track in this game is so great and it's such a good track. You put them on any of these 17 tracks, like these 3 that I've showed you here, and they're going to think something like this is too hard. You know, they're going to think the whoops on these kind of tracks are too hard. The jumps are too big. The whoops are too big, right? Kind of like what, an amateur should think whenever they get on a pro-level Supercross track. You know what I mean? You understand what's that? Pro-level Supercross track, right? They're supposed to be pro-level Supercross tracks for a reason, okay? Perfect example right here, okay? If you're anywhere of that skill level between, like, beginner, amateur, even if you're like a right into the 250 pro class, you're at the tip end of the 250 pro class, you're just getting into that 250 pro racing, and you think this track is proper skill gap, and you like this track, and the jumps feel good to you, and the scaling and the skill gap of it and everything feels good to you, that's the exact problem. That's the exact problem. Okay? When you get on a pro-level Supercross track at that kind of skill level, it should feel too hard to you. It should feel like the jumps are too big to you. It should feel like it's a little too challenging. It's a little too hard. That's what it should feel like. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're not supposed to come in here to these pro RF Supercross tracks and feel like it feels good on a 250 when you're an amateur in the game and the skill gap of it feels great. That's how you know it's completely off. That's exactly how you know right there. And this is so hard to explain to people because it's a feeling thing, right? If you don't really understand this game, you could look at a 2022 track and a 2017 track, and it's going to be hard to see the difference. You know what I mean? It's a feeling thing. Such a massive aspect of these newer RF tracks really is the traction. It's a super high friction, sandy level traction, which makes everything feel softer. On top of all the jumps and whoops and everything being smaller, everything feels softer as well. So it literally feels like you're playing like an official Supercross 1 level difficulty track design, right? That makes a massive difference. That's what makes the whoops feel just off to me. That's what makes everything feel off to me, because it's a super high friction, sandy level friction track. That's just not how the tracks were back in 2017, okay? They actually felt like dirt. That's the difference. And they actually had berms and inside pre-made ruts and quads that are actually worth it, okay? So let me go back to those tracks, just kind of show you what I'm talking about here. Just for instance, this 2017 Oakland track, all right? There's a separator right here in the first corner. You got to get enough speed to be able to bounce up triple over this. You're not really going to be able to do that on a 250 unless you go way to the outside. That's the only way you're going to hit that right there on a 250. And then that allows you to kind of do like a little quad over this tabletop right here. It's worth it. It's faster if you can hit it. It's challenging on a 450 because like how far inside can I go and still get the momentum to hit that? Dogs, this is the kind of shit that is just non-existent on that 2022 Anaheim 1 track. Literally non-existent on that track. But right here, that's the first separator. And this is not unrealistic big jump. This is not, oh my God, Spencer just wants these unrealistic huge quads on the track. It's not even that I want more quads. It's that I want more separating lines, period. I want more lines that I feel like I can hit on a 450 that a person is not really going to be able to hit on a 250. And that's the kind of shit that's just non-existent on those 2022 Anaheim 1 RF track. That's what makes it so boring. That's what makes it not replayable. That's why I call it an amateur track. Okay? Right? You got an inside rut here. Not that you're really going to use it that much, but you have one. Okay? You got ruts, 2-3 ruts on the outside of this corner. Everything's not just perfectly weird, basic, flat-looking bullshit. This double dragon's back right here. Beginners are going to flip over this shit like crazy. Okay? Here's your second separator line right here. Just to be able to get over this double dragon's back, you got to be pretty decent at your leaning in this game. You got to know what the hell you're doing. You got to be patient. You got to know what you're doing with leaning. All right? That's your second separator on the track. This whoop section right here is no cakewalk either, because you can actually get speed up to it. That's another big difference. With the way this traction is back in these days, you could actually carry speed into the whoops, which creates skill gap in the whoops. That 2022 Anaheim 1 track, with how much friction is on it, you can't even get enough speed to even make the whoops challenging. You can't even get enough speed up to them to even make them challenging. Here's your third separator. Jumping up over that table right there, and then jumping to here, triple to here. So that's 3 separators right there that are going to be pretty damn tough to hit unless you're literally a pro in this game. And it's going to allow you to be so much faster on the track simply from hitting the obstacles better, right? You can separate yourself just from hitting the obstacles, bigger, better, faster obstacles. You can't do that on the 2021 or the 2022 Anaheim 1 track. That track simply doesn't have that kind of shit. These tracks are so much better, dude. Oh my God. They are so much better. Again, I've rode thousands of laps on these tracks and they're still fun. I got bored of that Anaheim 1 track in 5 laps. The 2022 Anaheim 1 track, got bored of that in 5 laps. That's what it all really goes back to. It's like, what are you making, RF? Are you making amateur tracks or are you making pro tracks? What are you doing? What are you doing? You have got to have more risk to coming up short. You have got to have the potential bigger jump options. You've got to have it, or the tracks are just boring. They're just boring. This track right here, another perfect example. Separating quad right here. Okay? Separating quad right here. So there's 2 lines right away. First 2 rhythms of the track that you're simply not going to be able to hit on a 250. And even like an amateur on a 450 is going to have trouble hitting these bigger lines like this right here. But this is the kind of shit that makes you actually feel like a pro in the game, being able to hit stuff like that. Right? There's 2 separating lines right there, right off the bat. All right? So we go through here. You got 2 awesome inside pre-made ruts in this corner. Makes that corner fun, no matter if you're playing in single player, 2 or 3 of your buddies, Erode turned off or on, it's just fun versus having a totally glass flat corner like you have on the 2022 Anaheim 1 track. Okay? Challenging skill gap whoop section, even though they're not giant whoops, with the way the traction is and the amount of speed you can get into it, it makes them challenging. Do you understand what I'm saying? These are not quite as challenging as the Oakland whoops, but still, with how much speed you can get into them, you're always playing this game of like, how fast can I go without overshooting the corner or without flipping over the whoops, right? Like, even though I've rode thousands of laps on this track right here, these whoops can still reach up and bite me in the ass. Whereas on that 2022 RF Anaheim 1 track, I rode 5 laps on that track, and I could already realize those whoops were never going to be challenging to me. They were never going to reach up and bite me in the ass. You know what I mean? But that's how whoops are supposed to feel. Even as a top 5 RF 450 Pro, they're supposed to feel like they could reach up and bite you in the ass if you're not focused through them. That's just simply not what those whoops feel like on the 2022 Anaheim 1 track in this game. They're just not that at all. But like, you're going to gain a good 5 seconds a lap on this track just from hitting bigger big boy rhythms on the track. And here's another good example right here. You see how I'm doing a triple in, right? But then there's the option to jump over this table instead of quadding over to this jump right here in front of me. But it allows you to triple into the corner to carry a little bit more speed. So there's a, do I try to hit the triple quad or just the triple over to the table? There's line option there. There's choice there. It doesn't just feel like you're going to hit the same exact thing every lap because that's the one and only line that you should hit. Okay? Let me go to the other track right here. Bruh. This is just, man, oh man. These are pro Supercross tracks right here in this game, if you didn't already realize that. These are pro level scaling. This track right here, this 2017 Indianapolis, I think it is, it's one of the best, if not the best, scaling tracks I've ever seen in my life in this game, as far as pro RF tracks in this game. Inside pre-made rut. Okay, you see right here how you can come around and just kind of bounce off this middle jump right here to hit this triple? Well, you can also do a triple and jump clear over this right here, which is actually faster. It's a prime example. Let me get to the next lap right here. Okay, but again, look at the size of these berms. On top of the fact that the dirt doesn't feel like sand, it gives you an entirely different experience, an entirely different feeling. This right here, just to be able to simply hit this triple onto this table, you can't be no amateur in this game. You can't be no little sissy boy in this game. Just to be able to hit this triple in. Okay, this ain't no quad, but this is how you make a skill-gapped triple in right here. Distance, jump size-wise, that's how you do it. Okay, another inside rut right here in this corner. Okay. Finish line, decent distance. Doesn't feel like you're hitting some 5-foot long finish line jump. Okay? Whoops. Look, plenty of speed to get to the whoops. Okay? Good enough traction to where it doesn't make everything feel like this soft, cushiony little bullshit, first official Monster Energy Supercross game level easy. Okay? Look at the berms. Look at the berms. A whoop section right here that you have to stay engaged. You got to stay on the gas. You got to stay in it to get across it. Triple, perfect size quad right here. Skill gapped quad. Awesome triple section right here, which is just big enough to where it's challenging. Okay? It's not just about making more bigger skill gapped quads, even though they had that back in the day. It's making bigger skill gap triple ends, dude. It's not just making bigger quads. Do you understand that at this point? Watch this right here. Boom, you can triple right up over that. There's a good old separating 450 Pro only line right there that is actually faster than just bouncing over that second part of that jump. So as you've seen on all 3 of these 17 tracks I've rode on, there's at least 3 or 4 different separating obstacles to where you basically got to be a pro 450 rider in the game to be able to hit it. But you idiot amateur 250 boys and you boys that are just getting into that 250 Pro class, you won't understand any of that. That's why you think these new RF tracks are just so great. That's why you think the 2022 Anaheim 1 is just so great. But that's not a pro level skill gap track, whereas this right here is. That's the entire difference. That's the entire difference. Okay? And you notice how this quad right here, it's not so distanced out to where it's like just unrealistic to be able to hit it. You know, it's not, even if you had a little bit of a road on this track, I still feel like you could hit this quad right here. Super separating, it's worth it to actually hit it, you know what I mean? A lot of the quads nowadays on the RF tracks aren't even worth hitting in the first place. Okay, here we are back on this Anaheim 1. Do you notice here on the berms in the corner? Do you see how it's, even though like this corner in particular looks like there's about the same size of berm here, there's really not, because it's so smoothed off, right? It's so smoothed off. There's no edge to it at all. This quad right here, even though you can hit a quad right here, it's not any faster than just going triple-double, unlike the quads on the 17 tracks that were actually faster. They were actually worth hitting. That's the entire difference. Okay? This shit just, dude, it makes all the difference in the world. And that kind of sandy, high-friction traction, it just changes. It limits your throttle, it limits your power, your acceleration of your bike. Look how small these whoops are. First of all, you can only get so much speed into those whoops in the first place, so they're going to be boring in that sense because you can't even get enough speed to make these whoops challenging or potentially flip the bike over, or you can't even get enough speed in the first place. With how rolled off the berm is in combination with the high friction traction that limits your speed, okay, so even if you're wide ass open around this corner, you can't even go fast enough to make this whoop section fun or skill gapped or difficult or anything, okay? Rolled off, smoothed off, sandy ass berm in this corner. That's not even a berm really, right? And you would have had a nice inside rut. If this would have been like a 2017 track, you'd have had a nice inside rut right there, like what you saw in the press day of this track. You know, they built that, got that inside rut dug in where you could kind of hit that double from the inside in a rut. Instead, you just have this rolled off, smoothed off corner, okay? But you notice how all these jumps, they're so low to the ground, they're so short that if you come up short, it's not that big of a deal anyways. And it's such a sandy feeling traction, a sandy feeling tile map, that everything feels so much softer. That's the biggest thing that makes the biggest difference. This berm right here is another great example of the peak of the berm is not even going to the tough blocks. So that right there in combination with, and this is what's tricking a lot of you boys right here. Let me get over here in this kind of view of this. Okay? Let me show you what I'm talking about. So Notice how you see all that flat part at the top of this berm? The berm doesn't even go to the tough blocks. So it looks like you have a big enough of a corner there, but the real reality of it is the berm doesn't even go to the edge of the tough blocks where like it does on 2017. So really, it's even tighter than it looks. Do you understand what I'm saying? And with the more friction traction, it limits so much of the speed that you can get out of this corner to the point to where it makes it feel like you're not really going to be able to hit like a triple quad right here all the way to what would be like this jump right here, right? If this was a 2017 style track, let me just show you the rhythms you would be able to hit on this kind of a track. First of all, you would have way more of a berm slash traction coming out of this corner right here, so you'd be able to hit these whoops so much quicker, and they would be a little bit bigger, aka way more challenging. Okay, that's number one. All right, this rhythm right here, you would be able to go triple, right, and then jump over this table, and then you would be able to jump from right here, you would be able to quad all the way into that corner fairly easily. You know what I mean? If you're a 450 Pro in the game, you'd be able to hit that pretty easily, right? Not super easily, but kind of like those quads were in 2017. This would definitely be a hittable quad. And this corner, you'd be able to go triple, and you'd be able to jump off the start of this table and jump all the way into this corner if you were a really good 450 Pro. And you could actually somewhat attempt to hit both of those bigger lines every lap. Instead, they've limited you. They've made a higher friction sandy traction to the track, so it limits your power. And they've rolled off all these jump faces to the point to where it's not even really realistic to attempt to hit either one of those bigger lines on this track. Whereas you would have been able to hit both of those back in 2017. Such a giant obstacle separator that separates your beginners from your pros and your 250 pros from your 450 pro. You know what I mean? Such a big separator that would have been. These 2017 tracks are so much more skill-gapped and fun and replayable, regardless if you're playing with the road or not. They're more fun and definitely more fun in single player, but I mean, these tracks are going to be more fun with 2 or 3 of your buddies. These are going to be more fun with, you know, the Erode turned on to a super low level. They're just more fun. Like, that's all there is to it, man. They're more fun, and they're more of an actual pro-level Supercross track. They're more of an actual separating, difficult, skill-gapped Supercross track. By just the obstacles. Before you ever even talk about deformation or ruts or whatever, just the obstacles are more skill-gapped and like they should be. Period. But, you know, you boys can keep living in your fantasy pipe dream like Erode's gonna, you know, be the greatest thing ever. You keep on doing that, man. Those tracks are boring as fuck. They're boring. But, you know, people act like I'm over here expecting so much out of RF, all these unrealistic expectations. No, they used to do this shit properly. They used to do it properly. It's just been a while since they've done that. So you boys have kind of lost sight of what the hell is good track designs in this game. You've lost sight of that.